Welcome to the Unfading Truth Bible Reading Plan. Today we're reading Hebrews chapter 9, verses 22 through 28. God's grace is stronger than you are because of Christ's infinitely valuable atonement. Well, one of the key themes in the book of Hebrews is that Jesus is better than. And the previous passages have demonstrated that Jesus is better than the Jewish priests and sacrificial system, which are described only as a copy and shadow of what is in heaven. We're going to read chapter 9 here, verses 22 through 28. It says, "In fact, the law requires that nearly everything be cleansed with blood, and without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. It was necessary then for the copies of the heavenly things to be purified with these sacrifices, but the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices than these. For Christ did not enter a sanctuary made with human hands that was only a copy of the true one. He entered heaven itself, now to appear for us in God's presence. Nor did he enter heaven to offer himself again and again, the way the high priest enters the most holy place every year with blood that is not his own. Otherwise, Christ would have had to suffer many times since the creation of the world. But he has appeared once for all at the culmination of the ages to do away with sin by the sacrifice of himself. Just as people are destined to die once and after that to face judgment, so Christ was sacrificed once to take away the sins of many, and he will appear a second time, not to bear sin, but to bring salvation to those who are waiting for him." Well, as we begin a new week, we begin a new article here in the second point of the Canons of Dort. Still talking about limited atonement, but this week we're going to talk about the infinite value of Christ's death. The death of God's Son is the only and entirely complete sacrifice and satisfaction for sins. It is of infinite value and worth, more than sufficient to atone for the sins of the whole world. You probably don't need much help understanding what it's like to be stuck in an endlessly repeating cycle. At work, you deal with the same problems over and over. And it seems like at the end of the day, there are always more issues needing solutions than what you began with, despite all the work that you did. Others of you are at home, day in and day out, following the same dull routine. That makes it hard to remember which day of the week it actually is. The Old Testament sacrificial system was stuck in a very similar rut. Day after day, blood was shed to atone or to pay for the sins, both of the priests offering the sacrifices and the sins of the people that they were representing before God. But day after day, the pile of sins that needed atoning kept getting bigger. Jesus came to put an end to this hopeless cycle. Jesus is our priest. He is the one who entered heaven itself to appear for us in God's presence. But he's far different than the human priests who were mere copies. Jesus did not enter heaven to offer himself again and again the way the high priest enters the most holy place every year with blood that is not his own. Instead, Jesus appeared once for all to do away with sin by the sacrifice of himself. Christ's blood, which was of such tremendous value that he only needed to be sacrificed once for the sins of many in order to bring salvation, to those who are waiting for him. Let's dig a little bit deeper. These 5 canons that we're using as a roadmap to read through the Bible this year are commonly referred to by the acronym TULIP. Arranging the letters in the actual order of the doctrines they represent results in a much less attractive word, ULTIP. But that helps explain why we started the year with the U, unconditional election, and have now moved to the second doctrine, limited atonement, begins with an L. Although the L is handy for spelling out the word tulip, people often mistakenly assume that somehow this doctrine applies that Jesus' atonement, that is the payment that he made as he shed his blood on the cross, that payment or atonement is somehow limited in its value. Well, we'll discover why the adjective limited was attached to the word atonement in the weeks to come. But this second article makes very clear what so many passages like what we just read from Hebrews teaches. That far from being limited in value, the death of God's Son is of infinite value and worth. It's more than sufficient to atone for the sins of the whole world. It's this infinite value that has freed you from the otherwise endless and hopeless cycle of needing to placate God for each and every sin you commit. Understanding the overflowing worth of Christ's sacrificial death on your behalf is critical to fully experiencing the peace that comes from knowing why it is that God's grace is stronger than you are. Well, as you pray today, use the AAA prayer pattern. That's where you begin your prayer by acknowledging who God is. Today, open your prayer to our Father in heaven. Then as you pray, go on to align your life with God's will. Do that by thanking God for the forgiveness that you've received because of the infinite value of Christ's atoning blood. Then you can ask God for what it is that you need. Remember, everything else that you hear today will fade away, but the word of the Lord is unfading truth.